Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between mountains, there lived a young man named Arav. Arav was like many of the others in the village, simple, hardworking, but burdened with the weight of unfulfilled dreams. He had grown up watching his friends pursue careers, marry, and build families while he remained stagnant, unable to decide what he wanted from life. His parents, too, would often remind him, "Look at your friends. They are progressing, but you are still here, doing nothing. What will become of you?" Each taunt felt like a heavy stone on his chest. In the presence of his peers, he would pretend to be busy, but the truth was that Arav had no idea what he wanted to do. He felt like a leaf drifting aimlessly in the wind. One day, while walking through the village, Arav overheard an elderly man speaking to a small crowd near the well. The man was a wise sage who had lived in the village for many years. Known for his deep wisdom, the crowd was listening intently as the sage spoke about the nature of sorrow. He said, "Sorrow is not something to be avoided. It is a teacher. If you learn from it, you can rise above it. Sorrow shows us the truths we often refuse to see. It forces us to confront our deepest fears." Arav stopped and listened. The sage continued, "Do not shy away from pain, for when you understand pain, you understand life." But Arav, overwhelmed with his own sense of failure, couldn't understand what the sage meant. His sorrow felt like a weight he couldn't carry any longer. He approached the sage and said, "Sir, I am always filled with sorrow. Every day feels like an endless cycle of pain. How can I learn from it when it never seems to end?" The sage looked at him calmly and said, "Your sorrow is not your teacher yet. Come back when you have real sorrow, and I will show you the way." Confused but curious, Arav left, still carrying the heavy burden of his own confusion and self-doubt. Months passed, and Arav decided to start his own small business. With the little money he had saved, he opened a modest shop in the village square, selling handcrafted wooden items. At first, things went well. He made a little profit, and his parents, who had been critical of his inaction, now praised him for his efforts. Arav felt a glimmer of hope that he was finally on the right path. But as time passed, Arav's desires began to grow. He saw the wealth and success of others around him, and the pressure to prove himself became unbearable. He wanted more money, more fame, more recognition. Arav became obsessed with expanding his business quickly, cutting corners wherever he could. He started selling substandard goods, deceiving his customers for a quick profit. His heart, once full of optimism, began to harden with greed and pride. Eventually, his actions caught up with him. The villagers began to avoid his shop, and his reputation tarnished. What had once been a source of pride for Arav now became a reminder of his failures. In his desperation to keep his business afloat, he borrowed money from friends. But soon, the debts piled up, and his friends began to turn their backs on him. His life, once filled with hope, was now consumed by fear and regret. One evening, when Arav could no longer sleep, he remembered the sage's words, "Come back when you have real sorrow." It had been years since he had first heard those words, but now they seemed to resonate with him more than ever. Arav, feeling the full weight of his choices, made his way back to the sage's home. The sage greeted him quietly, sensing the torment in his heart. Arav spoke with tears in his eyes. "I've lost everything. My business, my friends, my peace. I don't know where to turn. I thought I was doing what I needed, but now it feels like I've lost myself." What am I supposed to do? The sage nodded slowly. Tell me, Arav, what did you learn from all this? Arav sat in silence, thinking deeply. I learned that greed and selfishness lead to destruction. I learned that the more I sought approval and wealth, the more I distanced myself from the people who truly mattered. I was so focused on getting ahead that I lost sight of what truly brings happiness: honesty, integrity, and peace with oneself. The sage smiled, his eyes full of understanding. Arav, now you have understood. This is true sorrow, not the pain of loss, but the sorrow of living without purpose, the sorrow of living in a world of distractions, forgetting what really matters. The sage then asked, but tell me, what will you do with this sorrow now that you have learned from it? Arav stood up, feeling a strange calmness washing over him. I will not run from it. I will use it as a guide to live a life of honesty and humility. I will rebuild not just my business, but myself. I will no longer chase after empty desires, but will focus on being true to myself and others. The sage nodded. That is the true way to find peace, Arav. True success is not measured by what you own or how many people admire you, but by the peace you carry within. Arav thanked the sage and left, but this time he felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. He returned to his village and began anew, this time with a deeper understanding of himself. He worked hard, but not out of greed. He treated others with kindness, and slowly his reputation began to rebuild, not because of his wealth, but because of the respect he had earned through his integrity. Years passed, and Arav became a respected figure in the village, but he no longer chased after success for its own sake. He had learned that real success lay in living with purpose, in being true to oneself, and in nurturing the relationships that truly mattered. And so, Arav lived the rest of his life in peace, always remembering the sage's words. True sorrow is the teacher that helps you find your true self. Friends, I hope you liked the story. Please let us know what you learned from this story by commenting below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. So, let's meet in the next video with another story. Until then, stay happy and keep smiling. Thank you.